welcome to another episode. I am your host, WIZE. I'm very excited. My next guest is a renowned leader in business growth and men's leadership. Welcome to the show, Purdeep Sangha.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, the pleasure's mine. The pleasure's mine, man. All right, so let's just jump right into this. I got some questions.
Yeah, for sure. I love the intro, by the way. That was good.
Thank you very
Catchy.
much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. All right, can you share a bit about your journey and how you became a leader in business growth and men's leadership?
Yeah, well, okay. So journey kind of started a long time ago. My parents were immigrants from India, and they came over, and pretty much just like most immigrants, they knew how to work hard, right? So they kind of did some manual labor, and then eventually, what had ended up happening was they had bought their own business, and that business ended up was actually an orchard. So when they came over, they just knew how to work on on a farm or an orchard because that's what they did back in India. And so my brother and I, we grew up on an orchard. Like literally, my oldest memories have been about growing up in an orchard. My parents used to put us in an apple bin when they used to pick apples. That was kind of like our playpen was an apple bin to contain us. But long story short, basically, my parents, they bought a business. So at a young age, I was very much into business, and from the perspective of, well, my parents are immigrants. They don't have any real education. And how are they doing better than a lot of the other people that have been around for a very long time? And I started to try to figure that out. And then I went into the corporate world because my parents were like, you know what, we don't want you working on an orchard. We want you to go out there and actually get an education, right? Because most immigrants, that's the number
That's
one
what they want
thing.
for the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, get an education. So I went to multiple different business schools, landed I worked my way up, got into executive roles. I was mainly in the banking sector for 14 years, a successful executive, and then my heart wasn't in it anymore because I love serving, you can say, the underdog, the smaller guys and gals out there, the business owners. And so I left and started my own firm and started working with business owners. I still do a lot of work with bigger companies as well, but that was kind of my journey. But the reason why I have a unique twist to it, and that unique twist is that at a young age, I actually started to study neuroscience. Like when I was at a very young age, like less than 15 years old, and trying to figure out how the brain actually worked properly and how we could actually use our fullest potential as human beings. And I've been studying that for over 25 years now. Plus, my dad, being a business owner, having a family, uh, he struggled with alcoholism. Like that was one of his personal challenges. Was he was a great dad when he was sober, did everything for his family, and did so many amazing things, but he really wasn't fulfilled in life, and as a result, basically, he got stuck with alcoholism, and he couldn't let it go, and then eventually that caught up with him, and he passed away. But I actually started to study the psychology of human beings because as a kid, I always wanted to try to help my dad because I was like, how can I help my dad stop drinking so much? And it's almost like a futile attempt. There's no way that a son is going to be able to stop his dad from drinking, right? In fact, it probably caused more tension than anything. But that gave me a unique, you can say, skill set. So my background's in neuroscience, in psychology, as well as business, and seeing the challenges that men have gone through over the years. Like we actually did a whole bunch of studies on men in particular, and partnered with research institutions, universities, academic institutions to really figure out the psychology of how men work. And that's basically what gave us the skill to be able to work with men in particular from a leadership perspective, because now we know what makes them tick. So our whole goal is to help men not only be better business leaders, but be better husbands, better fathers, and ultimately be more fulfilled within themselves. Because guys are built differently than women, where guys aren't as open as women are, and we will literally burn ourselves out before we actually ask for help or even acknowledge that we have challenges. So that's my mission. That's ultimately my purpose because my dad passed away 5 years ago. And so for me, this is a personal mission to help other men because I don't want other men to struggle like my dad did. And inadvertently, or you can say indirectly, we help a lot of women as well because when their husbands are happier, more fulfilled, more successful in business, have more time for them, have more time for the kids, well, it's a win-win situation for everybody. And so that's essentially the journey that we have right now, where we work with business owners, executives, entrepreneurs, both on the business side, but also on the personal side as well.
And that's very important. Is yes, it's great to focus on the business, but the fact that you help them on the personal side, because that's what a lot of people struggle at. It is, and when you're struggling on the personal side, that kind of leads you to failing in the business side as well. So, in your experience, what are some common challenges that entrepreneurs and business leaders face in balancing their professional and their personal lives?
Oh wow, yeah. I think definitely one of them is following this false belief that you have to sacrifice your personal life to be successful in business. You don't necessarily need to do that. There are times where you have to pour a lot of time and effort into it. That you have to, there's times that you struggle. There are times that yes, you have to put in more hours than you want to. But if you find yourself doing that consecutively, it becomes a pattern, and ultimately that catches up with you. Now, because you are have built yourself and trained your mind and trained your body to focus more on work, it's harder to shift more into family. And I'll give you an example, practical example. Most business owners and entrepreneurs, when they are at home with their families, they're constantly thinking about work, constantly thinking about work. So it's hard for them to be present in with their family or even when they have alone time, because all their minds are trained to do is go back to work. What do they need to do? How much more money do they need to make? How many more sales do they need to make? Oh, did someone screw up on something? I got to fix that, right? Or a customer complaint or a client complaint. All those things are what ruminate in our personal lives. So it actually impacts us. So we have to be able to draw this line, because every single element in our life adds energy or takes away energy from the other elements. So if you're not eating healthy or exercising, or if you don't have a healthy relationship, ultimately it's a simple exercise. You just draw a line down the middle and you say, is this giving me more energy or is it taking away? And most entrepreneurs will see that there's challenges in the personal relationship or challenges in other areas of their life. They're actually taking energy away from them. So if they actually spent more time addressing those, it would actually help add more energy to the business side. So that's one thing, I would say is very, very common for entrepreneurs. The other one is trying to do a lot of stuff on on their own, right? And this is where a business owner or a business operator goes from being a business operator to a business owner, and then eventually go to an investor. Is you realize that you can't do it all yourself, and that you can't use this false premise that other people don't have the skill set that you do, or other people don't care as much as you do, or you can't find the right people, right? So you have to be able to let go of that control, and you have to be able to get people to help you. That's where leadership comes in. That's where you got to be able to share your vision. It has to be a win-win-win. So getting other people to take on key aspects of your business is very, very important, because that enables you to have the freedom to continue to do the other things in life that you need to, because they fuel you and your business. Because burnout is probably the most common thing that business owners face.
Okay, all right. What is ultra performance, and can you explain what this means and how it benefits professionals?
Ultra performance. So, for since, as I mentioned, for the last 25 years, I've been focused on high performance and human potential, the science behind it, the psychology behind it. We even formalized that, where we partnered up with universities, as I talked about, 17 different universities and research institutions, and did a bunch of research on over 4,000, close to 4,000 individuals, where we were taking a look at how do we get people to improve their performance in the business world. And we came down with a formula, and it comes down into five different categories. And that five category, we created an acronym, which is Ultra. And we tend not to use the term peak performance. People typically refer to peak performance or high performance, but we don't use the term peak performance. And here's why. The main reason is the when you hear peak, there's a reason why people say peak performance, because that's at the very peak. What ends up happening is when you hit your peak, you ultimately come down. Right? So ultimate performance is about getting to a high level and actually maintaining that performance over a long period of time. So that's the difference between ultra performance and peak performance. And there's a formula behind it. The acronym actually stands for, you have the U stands for what we call unwavering inspiration. The L is for legendary skill advancement. The T is for tenacious execution. The R is for rapid innovation. And the A is for what we call active sustainability. Each of these five elements, when you add them together, they become extremely powerful. And I'll just give a small example. Unwavering inspiration, it's essentially what it means is that you show up with more energy and drive to be able to achieve your goal, right? You got to be more motivated. You got to have more energy. You got to have more drive because that is the fuel, right? That's the first place where it starts. If you're not motivated to get off the couch to do what you need to do to build your business, if you don't have that energy, you're not going to be able to do it. So that inspiration, actually, there's scientific elements beneath it because there's a biological element. Like when you're inspired, you feel it in your body. You know, right? You know when you're inspired. You have a different
Yeah.
level of emotions. You have a different level of hormones running through your body, and we've identified different elements that actually lead up to it. So those are, each one of those five elements leads to ultra performance. And our goal was to really come up with a framework and a system for the average business owner to be able to perform at a significantly higher level. And here's why. It's ultimately, if you take a look at the research, the average person's performance fluctuates by up to 65% any given time of the day, any given day of the week. So, what does that mean? You can show up pumped at 8 o'clock in the morning, be super pumped for your day, and by noon, you could be, let's just say you show up with a 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 in terms of energy and inspiration in the morning. By noon, you could be down to 3, right? By 2 o'clock, you could be back up to 8 or 7. And then by 5 o'clock, you could be down to 2 or 1. And so that fluctuation, what ends up happening is that it creates these highs and lows and it reduces your productivity, your efficiency, your effectiveness, your impactfulness. But if you can learn how to be at a higher level more consistently, you can actually get 8 hours of work done in 5 hours, in 4 hours. And that's the kind of productivity people need and the motivation and drive so that they can actually. And how many times I've been guilty of it in the past where I've spent the entire day doing stuff. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, what the heck did I do? Like, what did I actually accomplish?
Yeah.
Right. You're so busy and you're tired at the end of the day, but then you're like, I didn't actually accomplish
Yeah.
anything.
Mhm.
And that's a worse feeling. Right. And so we got to get rid of that and pull yourself out. And that's where, again, this is where the whole formula comes in the system.
And you're right. It's like there's those moments where you feel like you've been busy all day, and then by the end of the day, when it's time for reflection and all that, and you're like, what did I truly get accomplished? I feel like I've been working all day, and I don't see anything that I set my goal, like anything I set my mind to, didn't get accomplished. Why is that?
I would say the number one thing, there's a couple of things. Number one is we have to understand our brain. Our brain is actually a goal driven organ. That's why you have to have daily goals and not a whole slew of them, but like 2 to 3 goals max. And I have the stack of stickies here. I have the
Yeah,
stack of stickies here for a reason because when I'm doing an activity that I've scheduled for this hour, I write it down on the sticky and I throw it on my keyboard because that reminds me of what I'm supposed to do because our mind naturally gets distracted. Plus, you got the internet, you got social media, you got emails coming through. Everybody's trying to get your attention. And everybody's trying to get your attention because they want their goal achieved, not your goal. So if you don't write down your goals, you're working towards somebody else's goals. Because guess what? If you're on an Instagram and you're scrolling, that's not your goal. That's Meta's goal because they want to sell you an ad and
yeah.
they want you to buy something. So that's where we have to get better at setting goals, focusing our attention, removing distractions. And unfortunately, the way society has moved towards is it's a lot tougher to do now because it's become normalized to be distracted. It's been normalized to, look at your email. The average person looks at their phone now 300 something times a day. Like it's habituated into us now to get distracted. So we got to pull and extract ourselves out of that. So that's the biggest reason that impacts productivity in a negative way is distractions.
Yeah, there's times where I just take a few days to unplug, like where I'm not checking emails, I'm not creating content. I'm just taking that day. If I'm gonna sit home and watch a movie or just relax, sit on my deck, whatever it is, I unplug. I don't even touch my phone. I leave my phone in the office, and I just take that time to just do me. Just focus that time to recharge my battery, to just not be caught up. Not always, like you said, people, like you said, checking their phones 300 times a day. Like, it's crazy what we do with our phones. Like, we went out to breakfast yesterday, me and my family, and it was a bunch of us. Everybody was on their phone. Then you look at the other tables, everybody's on their phone.
Yeah.
Like you said, we get distracted easily.
It's become a norm now.
Yeah, it has. It really has. So tell us more. Tell us about Mind Your Own Business TV series and what inspired you to co-host this show.
Oh, okay, yeah, this it's a super cool show. It's a show about entrepreneurism. It's for the small business startup owners um, that are struggling to really grow their business or they're challenged. And we, as a panel, help them or give them insight and advice to be able to get overcome their challenges. Now, the cool thing about this is that each of these business owners has a major disability or accessibility challenge. So they're either in a wheelchair, some are blind, some have MS. Like it's incredible and incredibly inspiring to meet these individuals because being an entrepreneur is challenging in itself. Right? Getting up and going through those challenges is a tough thing every single day. For anybody who's an entrepreneur understands that. But imagine not being able to walk or see or hear or something tragic that happened in your life where you were fully functional and then you just don't have your limbs don't work anymore. Like these are a lot of the challenges that these individuals are facing, so it's a different level of inspiration, different level of challenges. And I wanted to co-host this because I was truly inspired by these individuals. Like I was uh, it's hard to even talk about it without and hold back my tears because these people um, and I would say I was completely ignorant as well. Wise, like I was ignorant from the perspective of I didn't realize how many people out there have accessibility or disabilities, like accessibility challenges or disability. Like I just sheerly did not, and how we as a society play blind to it. And this opened my eyes up completely, and I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe there's so many people out there that just don't have access to basic things, right? Like basic people in wheelchairs, how they can't even go into certain stores because the stores don't have a ramp.
Yeah,
Right? That's just something simple. Or they can't read a website because they're partially blind or completely blind. And so they don't know how to navigate that. So these little things that we take for granted, it just gave me a completely different appreciation for life. And I hope that the viewers that will have watched the show or will watch the show get the same as well. It's just a completely different level of inspiration.
oh no, yeah, yeah, absolutely right. Recently I spoke to a young man who had two brain aneurysms, and he had one, worked himself back to speak, and then he had another one, so he had to
Oh
do
man.
it again. And to see him to where he's at now, he's you can still see he's still working on his speech and all that, but he's doing some great things. And I'm like, man, look at what you've been through, right? And you still got that dog in you where you still grind and you still want to still out there trying to build your business. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, someone like me, look at that and I'm like, man, I'm fine. And what am I doing wrong? What, like, what is it that is that drive? And that just pushed me. I'm like, man, I got to go hard because look at this man. He's suffered two brain aneurysms. He's worked his butt off to get back somewhat a normal life. and just seeing him and talking to him and he we had a wonderful conversation and but it inspired me. It was like, man, I'm like, I gotta get to work. I gotta, like I'm slacking. I'm looking at this and I'm like, I'm slacking. Even though I'm it's just in my mind, I'm like, man, I gotta step up my game.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Some of these people can put us to shame, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It just makes me look at other people that are like, oh, I can't do this. I'm like, there's something seriously wrong because I'm talking to people that are suffering through major stuff and we're saying we can't get stuff accomplished. No, it's
Mm.
something we gotta and it's and so when you got into the neuro so last year I got to interview Bob Doyle and he's he was part of The Secret and all that. He the documentary and all that, and he was working on a new program called brain rewiring, and we had a great conversation, and he was talking about like changing your thought, like changing the way you rewire, like you wire your brain. Like, 'cause yes, we are a lot of us are programmed. A lot of us programmed from what we learned, TV, schools, and all that. What is it that you did? Like, were you really heavy into self development? What were the things you were doing to help you rewire your brain?
Yeah, I would say part of it was luck, and part of it was um, a lot of practice.
Mhm.
So the luck came in from the perspective that I grew up on an orchard. So it was a very mindful environment. So I would literally, there were days where I spent the entire day out in the orchard and not talk to anybody. So it was just me and nature. And therefore, it was just me and my mind. And so I learned how to navigate my mind at a very young age because I had the quiet time with my own mind at a younger age. Whereas kids these days are constantly stimulated, right? They're just like video games, all this, activities, all these kinds of things. And so I had that ability that enabled me to be able to think more clearly, be more calm with myself, um, go do a lot of introspective thinking and emotional, you can say, um, just assessment in terms of myself. And the other thing too was I was lucky enough that my grandfather immigrated over from India as well. My grandparents did, my dad's parents. And my grandfather was a very interesting individual. He was in the Indian Army for 30 plus years. He fought in wars, but he was a very spiritual man. And his father, so my great grandfather, was a spiritual teacher in India for 60 years. So that kind of came through our lineage where my grandfather taught me this. He taught me spirituality, taught me about mindfulness practices, meditation practices. So I did that at a very young age. And it just excelled. It actually enabled me to do things differently. Um, where throughout school, I would get straight A's. I had a photographic memory. I just did things differently than a lot of other kids, not because I had a gift, because I did certain practices like mindfulness, meditation. I started to study the brain. So I started to do these different, sometimes weird things that, my family would look at me like, what is this guy doing? Like this kid doing? Like I would watch TV sometimes with the volume at the very, very lowest possible so I could try to, flex my ability to hear properly. Like I just did weird things like that, right? Whereas most kids would blast the TV. So
Yeah.
I tried to exercise my senses at a very young age. So I did these practices over time, which gave me the ability to do what I can do now. And so I did a lot of personal development as well. I did a lot of reading in my teens. People like Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn, all those kinds of authors I read at a very young age. So that definitely helped me on my journey and path. The other piece I would say is I had great mentors. And these mentors were not influencers. They weren't famous people. They weren't rich people, wealthy people. They were everyday people. One was my grandfather. So he taught me about values and principles And today we idolize influencers, we idolize people that have a million followers, but we forget about those individuals that have real life experience.
Hmm.
And a lot of those are the elders, right? And we minimize the wealth of knowledge and experience that they have. So I was, you could say, um, lucky enough to have learned and taken on a lot of that knowledge from the elder generation as well. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, where things kind of progress for me. And I was just tenacious. When we go through challenges in life, like my dad's alcoholism, it was scary because he was a big dude, right? He was 240 pounds. He was a big guy, and if he drank too much, which happened actually quite often, sometimes he would and he got pissed off. It was like a bomb went off in the house. And it was a very scary environment as a young kid because I was like, I just hope my dad could go to sleep. And my dad wouldn't go to sleep. Like that was his challenge. If he drank and actually went to sleep, that'd be a different story. But he would stay awake. And so we would be on edge until he would go to sleep. And so that also taught me how to deal with difficult emotions because I went through that as a child. And now people ask me, my wife asked me, other people ask me, like, Pretty, why don't you get stressed? I'm like, because as a child, I learned what stress really was. I was freaked out. I was scared to the max. I learned how to actually deal with that stress at a younger age. So this kind of stuff doesn't stress me because when you learn through experience, you learn what really matters too. Like if business goes up and down, great, whatever. I'm still alive, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, you have. It's fun. It's for me like So I was widowed at 31, right?
Oh
And
wow.
my wife had prior to that, a couple of years prior to that, she had introduced me into the world of self development. She introduced me to Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, and got me into readings, and because I've always enjoyed reading, but she got me into reading self development books and everything. And when she passed, I struggled because it was my best friend. This is I had spent most of my early adult life with my wife, and so it was a struggle for me. I lost my way for a while, and I was struggling with a lot of emotions, anger, so all these things going on, and it was like when I was in that funk, and it was just like one tragedy after another. A year later, after I lose my wife, I reconnect with my dad, only to lose him, and I was just angry and very self-destructive, just not in a good place. And when I finally decided that this isn't where I wanted to be anymore, this wasn't what my life was. This wasn't my purpose in life, and I kind of shifted that and stopped being so angry and stopped. And I was like, man, I was upset over things I had no control over, and so when I decided to not no longer be happy, I mean, no longer be angry and focused more on the things that I could control, which was the things that I was doing, like the stuff that I was putting into myself. Like I got back into reading, I got back into to developing myself, and my life started changing. I met my wife that I'm with now. We've been together 10 years,
Wow.
and it things started shifting. Um, 3 years ago, I started podcasting, and honestly, at 44, I didn't have a clue of what my purpose was. I didn't know what I was meant to do, and I started podcasting, and I found out I had a voice, and I found out that I was like, man, I love doing this. This feels right. This here right here, it feels good to me, and I just started having some wonderful conversations, sharing my story, having people come on share their stories, and it was just like, okay. I just started diving into stuff. Just started wanting to learn more about improving my podcasting skills. What I had to do to 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 take it from where I started where I didn't know anything about podcasting. I didn't have a clue, but that's like I just had that hunger to learn. I just wanted to learn more and improve my craft and get better at what I was doing. So I just dove right into it. I started reading more books, started taking courses, got on YouTube, started watching videos on the stuff that I needed to do to help me improve on what I was doing. And it's just been like a oh man, it's been a wonderful journey. Like because I've been able to connect with some amazing people. I've been able to build some relationships and surround myself with people that are doing things that I want to do. They're regular people. And like you said, they're not influencers. They're regular people. But I've made these connections and these relationships where now I'm learning from them. Now I'm like, okay, this is something that I find interesting. And they're like, and when people see this, they tend to gravitate to you and they tend to want to help you. And I'm like, if you would have told me a few years ago I'll be doing this, sitting down here talking to you or talking to anyone, I would have laughed. It was just I didn't. It wasn't something I was thinking about.
Wow, that's amazing. Holy crow, man. Yeah, hearing your story, that's inspiring to me. And so you've been married for 10 years now?
Yeah,
That's amazing. Yeah, to be able to do what you did. Holy crow.
yeah,
Man, hats off to
47
you.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been a it's been a like just these past 3 years, man. It's been really different. It's like just the way I think and the way I look at even right like after everything that happened, um, because this a couple of week ago, so my aunt passed away from cancer,
Oh, sorry to hear
and
that.
it happened Saturday. And that Saturday, I was hosting an event. It was for International Podcasting Day, and we was hosting an event for 12 hours, and only my co-host knew what I was going through. She was the only one that knew that my aunt had passed away, and the reason I did the show because my sister's like, do it. She's like, my sister's like, you don't need to be here. We're taking care. We're here representing the family. Go do your event because you need that. That's she said that's your space. That's where you need to be at. That's where you feel safe and comfortable. Go do it. And and so I went. You couldn't tell that I was going through whatever I was going through at that moment because I was doing what I love to do.
Mhm.
I was able to come and share the stage with some wonderful podcasters and see some wonderful people put on some great shows and it wasn't towards the end that I brought up the fact that my aunt passed away and people were like we wouldn't have known like I didn't break down and I wanted to but there was moments that I wanted to but I didn't and because I knew that she's no longer here with us but I'm one who believes in energy and I'm very spiritual and so I know she's around me. She's forever. She's like energy doesn't die, so I know she's around me at all times. And so that got me through the show. That got me through the 12 hours, just knowing that she's always going to be around.
Wow, that's amazing. And sorry to hear about your aunt. Wow. Yeah.
And so when I look at life now, I look like I tell everybody like it's precious, man. These moments are precious. Like take the time to do what you want to do, man. If you really want, if you feel like this is what you want to do, if that's the path you want to go, don't be afraid to try. Don't let your fears hold you back. Because
Yeah.
then when you're on your deathbed and you're regretting, like, oh man, I should have done this. I don't want to be that person. So every time I see something that I want to get accomplished, I go out there and I try. That's what's the worst that can happen. I don't get it done.
Hmm.
I just keep trying.
Yep. That's awesome. That's the way to do it. Because it's a lot worse when you go through life and you have all those regrets.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, definitely, definitely. All right. So your passion includes helping men become the complete man. Could you elaborate on what this entails and why it's important?
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the things here is when we take a look at most men, and actually this happens for a lot of women too. A lot of people go through life feeling like they're missing something. And as a result of missing something, they feel like they're incomplete. Well, if you go through your entire life feeling like something's incomplete, you're going to miss out on life. And that's how most people do, right? It's the next thing that's going to make them feel better or make them feel whole. But the concept of complete man is really focusing on from within first, because a lot of people focus on the external world rather than their own internal world. And when you focus more on your internal world, as you talked about yourself and sharing just a beautiful example, is that when you shift how you feel internally and how you think internally, the external world starts to shift around you.
Yeah.
Actually, science now shows that and shares that as well, where a person's world is a reflection of their internal state. And so if we start shifting our internal state, we can actually create a life that is completely different. Now imagine if we felt complete from within, what would that do for our external world? That is ultimately what we talk about when it comes to the complete man. And the complete man isn't having perfect everything in your life perfect. Like that's not the concept. But acknowledging each element of your life and addressing each element of your life is what we talk about when it comes to the complete man. And there's a thing where it's about being accepting of where you are, but also having goals. The challenge is most people don't accept where they are. And if you don't accept where you are, you always feel incomplete. But if you accept where you are and say, okay, this is okay where I am right now. I'm content where I am right now, but I want to achieve more. I want to do more. I want to make more money. I want to have a better job, whatever that is. That's fine. But you don't feel like you're missing out when you accept your current situation. And when you feel whole, complete, that's when you have more energy. That's when you have more drive. That's when you actually able to make a bigger, you can say, more massive impact. Because who likes to hang around with someone that feels incomplete in some way, shape, or form? People pick up on that, right?
Mhm.
And so this is the most important thing, is understanding that when you start to shift internally first and being complete, here's the irony of it. It's a journey, and that journey is never complete. And
Mhm.
so that's the beauty of this. It's kind of like an oxymoron a little bit, where it's like you tr- the whole concept of being complete is that you will never be complete, but it's a continuous path of growing and
Oh, yeah.
learning to get to not a place, it's not a destination. It's about just growing from where you were 2 weeks ago to where you are today. So rather than constantly looking forward and trying to compare yourself to that, it's looking back and saying, how much better did I get as a result of that? There's a different perception from that perspective, because when you start doing that, you actually become a lot happier and more joyful. People start to, uh, and this has been shown now through psychological studies, is that when you compare yourself to something that you don't have, whether it's you don't have it or someone else does have it, and you compare yourself to them, you're more likely to be depressed. You're more likely to have negative emotions. But when you compare yourself to the improvements that you made from 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago or 2 years ago, like you said,
Mhm.
like even you talked about your journey and how you've improved, that creates more positive emotions, right?
Mhm.
And then those positive emotions create more momentum. And other people around you see that and they feel that and they want to be around you. They want to be part of your journey. And then it becomes not so much about, hey, I want to be around this person because I feel sorry for them. It's I feel their energy and I want to help them achieve their goal.
Yeah.
And that's a core concept of what we're talking about.
No, that's I feel that is right, man. That is what you just said is true. When people when people like with the shift for me, when I really started, eh, just even this past year, just this past year, as far as my podcast and everything, um, I, like I had a like when I December 2022, I probably had almost 9,000 downloads, and but I had started really learning about SEOs, learning about I started using ChatGPT, learning all these, really getting involved into the the little stuff and that I wasn't really doing. I got into learning automation and all this other stuff. And I can tell you now, as of today, I'm almost to 25,000 downloads
Wow,
in just this what 10 months now, since
that's amazing.
10 11 months. And it's really me learning from other people and people wanting to teach me and show me because they see that I'm eager to learn and they see my energy and they see that. But one of my friends call me Mr. Big Up, and that's because I'm always bigging people up. I'm always s- sh- like if one of my friends posts something, shares, I'm sharing this stuff. I'm always giving people their flowers, giving them their props, and and, and for me, it's because I feel like, how do I expect anyone to support me or even check out any of my stuff if I don't support anyone else? So my thing is helping lift other people up and push them up. And at the same time, they end up it ends up benefiting me. It ends up helping me out because you start building these relationships with people and these opportunities start coming up. Like the hosting of the international podcast, it was someone I built a relationship with. He was hosting it. He created the event, and I just shot my shot. I was like, "Hey, can I host the event?" And he went, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, please." He said, "Thank you. Like, I would love for you to host it." And so it's those moments, it's those relationships that I've built and worked on, and they're paying off. And that's because for me, it's like I'm myself. I just try to be me, and do I do what I feel is right. And when I feel like helping as many people as possible, boosting people up. I don't do this for fame. I don't do this for recognition. I do this because I want to help people. I've got messages from people watching shows telling me how much an episode helped them out or whatever. It's those moments that I really truly do enjoy. Is getting the messages from someone that, man, I needed to see this episode, or I need to hear what you were talking about. That's what I love. Those are the moments. I want more of those moments. I can, yes, money is nice to have and all, and sponsor, yeah, but it's those moments that I really truly do love.
Yeah, and I could tell just by how passionate you are that you're definitely making a difference.
It's it was crazy because I recorded an episode last year with a friend of mine, and I hadn't released it. I didn't release it till recently, and I put a description in it about her. I took the thumbnail. I took one of her favorite pictures. I didn't know it was her favorite picture, but I thought it was a very nice picture, and I used it as I used it in the thumbnail and everything. I filled out the description, and she sent me a message. She's like, "Is that the interview we did last year?" I was like, "Yeah, sorry, I kind of got lost in the shuffle." And one day I'm just looking because I was going looking for episode to put on, and I see it, and I'm like, I hadn't released it, and I upload it, and I put the description and everything, and I tag her in it, and she sends me a message, and she was like, "Is this yeah?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's the episode and everything," and she says, "Thank you." um the words you said about the description you put in there, the wonderful things you said about me being positive and all this other stuff. She said, I needed to hear that. She says, I haven't been feeling that way lately. She says, I haven't been feeling like that for months. And when you described me and you put all this stuff, she says, I needed that. And this was her episode. This is an episode we recorded. So it was, to me, it was amazing that our episode together really impacted her now. Like, this is like, I didn't know she was struggling with anything. It was just something me inside of me just said, release this episode. It needs to go out. And when it did, and I got that message, I was like, okay, that's spirit talking. This is energy. This is what's supposed to happen, and that's why I do what I do. Is you never know when you're gonna make an impact.
Yeah, wow, that's beautiful. It's
It's
amazing.
I am blessed to be able to do this, man. I am so blessed to be able to sit down and have these conversations. I am. I learned. It's funny because early on I felt kind of selfish because I felt like I was learning so much and I was enjoying it so much. Right, I was enjoying doing it and I was learning so much, and I kind of felt selfish. And a guest of mine was like, "There's nothing selfish about what you're feeling." She's like, "There's nothing selfish about you enjoying this and doing this because just what you're here for is to grow and learn, and at the same time, you're also sharing it with your audience."
Mhm.
That's one thing. If you was to keep all this to yourself and not share your content, then maybe you might be a little selfish. But she's like, "But you're sharing this content. You're sharing
Yeah.
it out with your audience. You're same thing you're getting, they're getting.
Mhm.
So there's nothing that's self-love." I'm like,
Yeah,
"Yeah."
exactly. Bang on.
But this has been great, man. I've had a one look, we'd be like, "How long is it?" And time flew, man.
I had a great time. So you're an amazing host. So this was awesome.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I really do appreciate you. But now it's you get the solo screen, you get to plug away, let people know where they can find you, everything.
Yeah, I think the simplest way to find me is to connect with me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best platform. Feel free to reach out. You can send me a connection request. Please let me know that you've listened to this podcast episode, and I'm more than happy to chat with you. So that's pretty much it. Or if you like, you can always get a copy of the book if you're interested. If you're a guy, and interesting enough, a lot of women read our book as well because they want to understand their guy the guys in their life a lot better. You can go to thecompletemanbook.com, or if you go to completemanaudio.com, you can get the digital audio and the digital ebook. If you use this promo code victory75, so the word victory and then 75, no space, you'll get 75% off the digital audio and the ebook.
All right. And all that will be in the description. I will make sure all that's in there with the promo code. Definitely go get the book, get the audio, whatever it is that you want to listen to. If you prefer to listen to it, that's great. If you want to get the book, get the book. Just go out there and support and yeah, thank you so much, man. This has been wonderful.
Well, thank you
This
for
is
having me. So I appreciate you sharing your story because it's inspired me.
thank you. Now it's it's been one of the questions a question someone asked me was, do I regret anything that happened in my life? Like, and I was like, no. They're like, even the losses and all. I was like, no. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. I wouldn't want anyone else to go through it. But it's helped me build me into who I am. I- It's 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 helped me realize that life is precious. That you have to enjoy the moment and enjoy your life. And so would I would I do it all over again? Who knows? Who knows? But this was the path that was laid before me, and I'm just looking forward to what's ahead. I'm excited, man. Like these last few months, honestly, I've been able to sit down and have some great, like even this past couple of weeks, including this conversation, have been some very impactful conversations. Last week, I had three amazing guests, and all three of those interviews to me were very impactful. And this one today, starting off my week right, like this one right here is also starting off my. So I just look forward to all these other episodes because I'm booked through January. Like you said,
Awesome.
you booked this in July.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
that's
booked this
sweet.
in July. I'm booked through January.
Awesome.
I'm blessed to be able to continue to do this, and and the fact that people find it interesting. Well,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, definitely. It's a win-win.
yeah, yeah. But don't leave just yet. Let me close out the show. We'll chat a little bit off the air, and yeah. But thank you so much, man. This has been wonderful.
And thank you for having me.
The pleasure's all mine, man. Definitely the pleasure's all mine. But let me close out the show. All right, everybody. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. Greatly appreciate it. Facebook user, I don't know who it is, but when I look later, I will find out and send you a message. Thank you for stopping by, leaving a comment. Um, Big shout out to my real wise fam, Poppy J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Big shout out to the boss lady. Love you and appreciate you, baby. Big shout out to my guests, Purdeep Sangha, for coming through and sharing some amazing, amazing stuff, man. I love it. And as always, a big, big shout out to all the essential workers out there. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.